Okay, good morning. I'm Mr. Torini. I'm one of the counselors here. We're going to do a coffee talk today on all the different testing that we do here at the school, which is a pretty comprehensive program. Before I begin, I do want to introduce a couple of the counselors that are in here. We have Ms. Stair, who's going to record this and put it on our YouTube channel, so other parents or yourselves can watch it at a later time. We also have Mr. DeWalt, who's our coordinator. He's over there helping hand out materials, okay? So we do a lot of testing. We'll talk about some of the major ones that we do here at school. These are going to be some of the topics we'll talk about. We'll talk about the college admissions test, which include the PSAT, the SAT 1s and 2s, the ACT, and the PERT. And they're all kind of different, and we'll go over those a little bit. We'll talk about our AP and AICE testing for the advanced coursework that we offer students here to try to earn college credit or advanced placement when they go on to college. And also, more importantly, to help them establish a foundation for their readiness for college. It's really what those two programs are all about. And then we'll talk about the state mandated tests. The FCAT's kind of gone away. I have it still listed there, but it's pretty much been replaced by the FSAs, which are the Florida Standard Assessments, and the end of course exams. We'll also talk about the ASVAB, which is a vocational aptitude battery given by the Armed Services. And then we'll talk a little bit about semester exams, which are coming up in just a couple weeks. So the first thing is the PSAT, which is the preliminary SAT or the practice SAT, has kind of expanded over the last few years. We used to traditionally give the PSAT to 11th graders nationally. It was a test that students took in 11th grade to get them ready. They would take it in the fall of 11th grade to get ready to take the SAT later in the spring of their junior year and fall of their senior year. Over the past decade or so, that has kind of expanded. Our school district began giving the PSAT to 10th graders a while ago, and now we give it to all 8th and 9th graders. And College Board, the organization that oversees the SAT, ACT, AP testing, they developed a separate test just for 8th and 9th graders. So this is a test that helps students kind of figure out what kind of skills they're going to need later on when they take the actual SAT or the PSAT. So it tests those same skills, it just does it at a grade level that's appropriate for them, based on their math level, their reading and writing levels. It has some benefits. One of the main benefits is it gives us a baseline measurement of their college and career readiness, kind of their readiness to take more advanced coursework, like AP coursework or maybe AICE coursework. It also helps the students get an idea of what the format of the PSAT and SAT will be later on. So the more they kind of see this test, the idea is the more familiar they'll come with the testing format, the types of questions that they need to answer or understand, and also the ability to work under time conditions to do those assessments. Okay? It also provides them an early opportunity to create a College Board account, which they do want to do, and then align that with Khan Academy, and I'll talk more about that later, but that will provides free preparation for them to get ready for the PSAT in 11th grade when it counts for scholarships and things like that, and for the SAT when it starts to count for college admissions and for other scholarships as well. So the primary preliminary, after they take it in 8th and 9th grade, they take it again in 10th and 11th grade. It's a different format. This is the traditional PSAT. It was kind of redesigned a year ago, and these are some of the things it provides. So it gives them personalized SAT study through Khan Academy. That's really important, and what students want to do is they want to make sure when they're taking the PSAT in 9th grade and 10th grade and 11th grade that they're linking their College Board account, that they set that up, and that they link it and create a Khan Academy account. It will give them personalized instructions. What it does is it allows College Board and Khan Academy to communicate, and the students will actually have their specific test results sent to Khan Academy. They'll do an analysis of the student's strengths and weaknesses, and they'll target the instruction to that student's actual individual needs to help them increase their scores. okay? Now to facilitate that, it's really important. The student has to do two things. They have to obviously take the test and create a College Board account, and then they have to create a Khan Academy account and link it to their College Board account. Their English teachers in 10th and 11th grade try to help them do that here at school, but it's up to the student to actually utilize their time outside of class to do that practice. You know, we don't have time at school really to do it, so they have to kind of do that on their own. It's something they should do on a regular basis, especially as they move through 11th grade. It also gives them a personal profiler that suggests majors and careers to explore. So it's kind of an interest inventory built in. And then they connect with college search and majors. The new PSAT, like I said, it was redesigned, and it mirrors the newly redesigned SAT. Now, if you have an older child who maybe took the SAT, you know, 2 or 3 years ago, these are some of the major changes that took place. And what SAT really did is they tried to move away from having a reasoning test to more of a curriculum-based assessment that measures a student, what they've learned in college and the skills they need to be successful. Or I mean, what they learned in high school and the skills they need to be successful in college. So these are some of the main things. It really moved away from things like vocabulary in isolation to vocabulary in context and meaning. Problems grounded in real world situations. They want students to read literature and articles when they're doing the test that deal with things like history and politics and global events and things like that that are relevant. They use things like the founding documents and global conversation. One other major change is there's no longer a penalty for getting a question wrong on the multiple choice sections. So those are some of the major changes. This gives you an overview of what is in the PSAT. So it's made up primarily of 2 sections, evidence-based reading and writing and math. You can see the length and how the test is kind of structured. Now the math has 2 sections. One allows the student to use a calculator and one section doesn't. The new PSAT, like I said, is aligned with the new SAT. The new SAT just launched last March, so it's brand new. The first group to take this new SAT is our current seniors. So the current seniors were the first group to take that. And the test, when they realigned it, they went from a 2,400 point system back to a traditional 1,600 point system, 800 for the reading and writing, and 800 for math. There's still an optional essay, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Like the new PSAT, the SAT shares a very identical format, and it assesses the same skills. Those things that the colleges feel you need to know to be ready for success when you arrive there. This shows you the structure of the new SAT. So you'll see it has 2 sections. Kind of shows you the length. The test has been shortened a little bit, so it's not quite as long as the old SAT. Another major difference is there's still an essay, but the essay is optional. Some colleges do still require the optional essay, but many colleges do not. There's actually a website when you go on the College Board where you can search for colleges by name or state, and it will tell you the colleges, you know, what is their feeling on the essay. Do they require it? Do they recommend it? Do they not require it? So students can search for that as they are interested in colleges that they might want to apply to. This tells you a little bit about the SAT reading section. So all the questions are multiple choice. There is crossover between the passages. Some of the passages relate with each other, which is kind of a new thing that the SAT has done. There are tables and graphs in there, but there's no math required for the actual reading component of the test. They don't test prior knowledge. Everything that the student needs is in the text-based reading, and it's evidence-based. So the students have to be able to draw conclusions from the text that they read and understand the evidence that's in there that's factually based. When they take the writing and language test, they do basically 3 things. They have to read that, and then they're kind of like an editor. So they're going to go through that, and they're going to look for mistakes or weaknesses in the argument, and then they have to not only identify those mistakes, but they have to understand what the correct format to fix them would be. They have to demonstrate that on the test as well. So, I think I'll look up. Okay. That looks like the same slide. Okay. The SAT math. So the math questions are multiple choice. There are some grid-ins where students have to come up with questions themselves or the answers themselves from the questions, and they're not given a multiple choice. Like I said, the math's divided into 2 sections, part with a calculator, part without. And some of the parts of the test include several questions about a single word problem or scenario or maybe data that they're given. So they have, you know, if they're not comprehending that, they could run into problems because some of those questions build on as they go through that particular 3 or 4 questions sequence. This is the focus of the math. So it basically covers Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. Has problem solving and data analysis, which is like statistics. Has a little bit of information on some advanced math concepts, okay? And there's a little bit of trigonometry in there, which is kind of new for the new SAT. They didn't have that before. But the majority of the test is going to cover Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, and then statistics and probabilities. So that's the main parts of the test, of the SAT. Like I said, there is an essay component. It's been completely redesigned. It's optional. Some schools require it. When this link goes on our website, where you see where it says Get College's Policies, that will be a hyperlink. You'll be able to click on that. It'll take you right to the College Board website. But if you go to the College Board website and you say, what is, you know, if you just Google what is the college's policy on SAT essay, it'll come right up. And you can view those colleges by state or by name. So if you know, gee, I want to go to Florida State, you can look and see what their policy is about the SAT optional essay, and it will tell you, okay? The essay is 50 minutes long, so that's twice as long as the old essay is. It tells you, you know, it's going to not be based on, it's not like an argumentative essay or things like that. It's more like you have to cite evidence again from something that you're going to read, the prompt. So the prompts are always the same on the essay. It's always going to be nearly identical to what this is. You're going to read a passage, okay? You're going to have to look for facts and examples to support your claims, reasoning to develop ideas. You're going to have to look for things like explain how the author builds their argument, really is what you're looking for here, okay? So this gives you an idea of what the essay is. It's a little bit higher level in the writing than the previous essay used to be. Okay. There's a test also called the SAT-2. We'll talk a minute about this. Now, when a student applies to a 4-year college or university, if a college or university requires a college admission test like the SAT or ACT for admission, you're going to have to take one of those 2 tests. One thing I'll tell you about the SAT and ACT is that any college that requires an admission test like the SAT or ACT, they don't have a preference over one or the other. In years ago, you know, some colleges geographically might have had a preference for the ACT or the SAT. That no longer exists. If a college requires them, they will take either test and they kind of view them equitably. So students should take both the SAT and ACT because they're never going to know which one kind of better fits their testing profile as an individual. And colleges will take either test if they require it. Now that being said, there are some colleges that are 4-year universities that don't necessarily require testing, okay? There are some what they call test optional schools out there. Give you an example like Seton Hall University, okay? Seton Hall certainly will take SAT and ACTs, but if you choose not to send them, they will evaluate you based on your transcript. There's a moving trend towards that. Doesn't really exist too much here in Florida yet. Most of the schools, all of our state universities still require college admission tests. That's actually written in the statute, so they have to require this, but there are some private colleges outside of the state of Florida where you might see a move towards optional testing. I bring that up because the SAT 2 test is a very optional test. Not very many colleges require it. It's generally, if it is required, it's generally required by more private or elite schools, sometimes like Ivy League schools require, but not even every Ivy League school any longer requires the SAT 2. There's some Ivy League schools that don't even ask students to take it. The SAT 2 may also be used, even if it's not required by a college in general. There are some colleges that might require it if you're going into a certain major. For example, if you want to study something like engineering, they might want you to take the SAT 2 in math or physics, something like that. But that would be degree specific. The SAT 2 are subjects tests. So they test over 20 total tests that students can take. When you sit for the SAT 2, you can take up to 3 subject tests in one sitting, okay? They're given on Saturdays just like the regular SAT. Students generally take them very late in their junior year or early in their senior year. Again, this may not apply to every student. None of our state universities require SAT 2 subject tests, so if you're going to UF, Florida State, FAU, you don't need these. We do give a free SAT for juniors. This year it's scheduled for March 1st, so all 11th graders will be able to take this test for free. The one we give on the school day does not include the writing, so they won't take the optional essay. And the goal is to give every student in high school at least one opportunity to take the SAT for free during the school day. So the school district pays for this test for the students. We pre-register them through their English or US history classes for it. Again, for the juniors who take this, it's important to understand that once they take the test, if they're going to take it in the future, they can do that same thing with the Khan Academy that I mentioned before to link their results so that they can get a study plan, even if they didn't take the PSAT in 11th grade. Because in 11th grade, the PSAT is optional. Some other advantages is you save $43, which is the cost of the test without the writing. Okay? And we can use these to prevent students from having maybe take a remedial class their senior year if they're missing one of the college-ready scores, or if they're missing maybe reading FSA's course, something like that. They can also use them to qualify for dual enrollment and scholarships like the Bright Future. So this talks about building that study plan from the Kaplan program that I mentioned. There's a couple different options. So option A is when, like I said, when students share their results. So if you've taken the PSAT 10, the PSAT 8-9, or the SAT, you can share your scores. And it's a 3-step process. Once you have a College Board account, you set that up, because you did that when you took the test. Then you create a Khan Academy account. You choose to let College Board on your account know to share it, sign into your College Board account, and click Send. They will send your scores and information to Khan Academy, and then when you go on your Khan Academy account, you set up your study plan, and it will be tailored to you as an individual. So that's option 1. Now, suppose a student is new or they never took the PSAT or SAT, but they want to get ready for the test. If they don't have scores, they can still get personalized recommendations. They create a Khan Academy account and they can take some short diagnostic tests or quizzes that will pinpoint what their strengths and weaknesses are. And then Khan Academy will set up a plan for them. And the great thing about this is it's free. It's really free. The only thing it's going to cost the students is to set up and then to the time to invest to do the prep. Okay? And when you go on the website for College Board, this is exactly what it looks like when they link you back to Khan Academy. Okay? So you'll see at the top it's khanacademy.org/SAT is the website. If you go to the College Board website, you can, and you click on it, it will link you back to this website. That's kind of what it looks like. Okay, we'll talk about the other college admission test called the ACT. So, like I said, for students who want to do dual enrollment, applying for Bright Futures, other scholarships, colleges, If a college scholarship organization requires a college admission test, they generally have no preference between the SAT or ACT. They'll take whichever one you perform better on. Our general recommendation is that all college-bound, if you're planning on going to a four-year college, you should take the SAT and ACT at least once by the end of your junior year, if not twice, and then retest again in fall of your senior year early, September, October, November, maybe December, if you're trying to improve your scores. If you're doing it for Bright Futures, you'll have extended time because you can take any time through senior year, and we'll talk a little bit about Bright Futures in a few minutes. But the ACT is the other college admission test. It assesses a student's general educational development. It's a very curriculum-based test. SAT has kind of modeled their new SAT when they redesigned it. In some ways, if flattery is the highest, or imitation is the highest form of flattery, that's kind of what SAT did with ACT. They kind of imitated them. It's a multiple choice test that covers 4 areas: English, math, reading, and science. There's no penalty for guessing. It also has an optional writing test. Now, the writing test with the ACT, you'll find that more colleges require the writing on the ACT than they do the optional essay on the SAT. But just like College Board, you can go on the ACT website and you can look up the colleges that require the ACT writing, okay? The ACT English, this tells you a little bit about what it is, but this is basically a test that measures usage. So it's going to measure things like grammar, verb, tense, things like that, sentence structure. So it's going to kind of measure those grammatical things of English language usage, okay? I don't think we use like the old Warner's grammar book, but this is kind of what it's measuring, okay? The ACT math is a pretty comprehensive math test. You see it covers all these different areas. I give you a percentage breakdown of what the different content of the exam is. Now, the most important thing to understand about the ACT is it's taken sequentially. When you get to the math section, you have 60 questions in 60 minutes. So the questions, most kids will tell you the questions on the ACT are a little bit easier than the SAT, but the timing is the real trick, pacing yourself. If you have to do 60 math questions in 60 minutes, you have to really stay on task, okay? Because you're doing a question every minute, okay? But you're going to see most of it covers things like pre-algebra, algebra 1, and geometry. Only 7% of the test is higher level math like trigonometry. So the questions are pretty, most students who have taken Algebra 2 are going to be familiar with most of these questions. It's just a matter of managing your time on the test because, like I said, it's very fast paced. The ACT reading is a 40-minute test, or a 40-question test, 35 minutes. And they give you reading passages. The great thing about their passages is they're curriculum-based, okay? So when you read the passages, you're going to see they cover things like social studies, natural science, fiction, and humanities, the same things that kids are learning about in school. So the reading passages are tied to curriculum. Okay. The ACT Science. Now, when you take the ACT Science test, one thing to understand is they're not asking you just factual information. Like, you know, you're not going to have to remember all the components of a cell, for example, and what mitochondria does. What it really is going to measure is your ability to analyze information. There's a lot of charts and graphs in here, things like that. The topics do include things like biology, physics, earth science. But the test really emphasizes reasoning skill over recall of content, okay, and that's really important. So you don't have to necessarily recall the content you learned, but you have to be familiar to be able to analyze the information they give you on the test to draw conclusions that make scientific sense using that scientific method, okay? You can see how it breaks down. So part of it is reading a research summary and being able to analyze that information. That's 45% of the test. Graphs and statistical analysis is 38%. And then being able to see conflicting viewpoints at 17%. Okay? And this is the writing test. Like I said, the writing test is optional. It's 30 minutes. It's an essay test. You're given a writing prompt, define an issue, and describe 2 points of view on that issue. Okay? The writing test is taken at the end of the exam, so it's the last section. These are kind of in the order that they're given when you take the test, as we went through them. And again, not every college requires the writing. One thing also to note is when Bright Futures looks at ACT scores, they don't require writing either for Bright Futures, okay? So this tells you a little bit about the differences between the two tests. So you can see, time-wise, they're really close now. They used to be a bit different. The SAT used to be a little bit longer, but they're pretty close to being matched up now. You'll see the content. There's no penalty for guessing, and the score range. So SATs are scored with two sections between 200 and 800 points. So a perfect score on an SAT would be 1,600 for the reading and math. And the ACT is scored 1 to 36. So a perfect score on a section is 36. They take those 4 sections, average them together, divide by 4, and give you a composite score. So a perfect composite score would also be a 36. In your composite score on the ACT, the writing is not included in the composite score. It's a separate score, so it's not averaged into the composite. Okay. These are our test dates for this year. So you can see the ACT test dates are at the top, SAT are at the bottom. Students, we give you the test date, we tell you the regular deadline. Now, students always want to try to sign up by that regular deadline because otherwise you pay an extra fee for late registration. You can see the late registration. There's no more any longer like standby testing or showing up the day of the test. Because of test security, they got rid of that. So you really do have to sign up no later than the late registration deadline. Know that the late registration is going to charge you like an extra 20 bucks. If a student uses a free or reduced lunch fee waiver, which if they're on free or reduced lunch, they get 2 fee waivers for each test during their junior and senior year. They can't do that usually for late registration either, okay? The other thing students have to know when they register for these tests is when they create their account on SAT and ACT, the 2 accounts are separate. So if I take the SAT, doesn't mean I sign up for the ACT on the SAT website. It's a completely different website. They'll have to create a username and password for each website separately, okay, and remember those. The other thing is they have to upload a photograph of themselves, kind of a photo that will look like a passport or driver's license photo. And then, the most important thing they have to remember the day of the test, Mr. DeWalt will tell you this because he does a lot of the testing, is they have to bring their photo ID that day of the test. We can help you if you forget your test ticket or your pencil. We can't help you if you forget your ID on the day of the test. You will not be allowed to test. Even if I know you as a student, I can't allow you to test. So you have to make sure you bring your ID that day. That's part of the reason for the no longer going past the late deadline, because they're going to match up that photo ID with the picture that you upload when you register. Oops. Another test we'll talk about is the PERT test. This stands for the Post-Secondary Readiness Test. Took place at the College Placement Test back in 2010. This is a test that we use for primarily 3 purposes. One is it's used for dual enrollment if a student hasn't taken an SAT or ACT score and they want to do dual enrollment like in 10th or 11th grade. Another reason we use it is to measure college readiness that we have to determine for students who are seniors before they graduate. The state legislature wants every student before they graduate to be college ready, college and career ready. So we use this test for that. And the third reason we use it is students who haven't passed the Algebra 1 EOC, which we'll talk about later, can sometimes use the PERT math test in place of it, okay? So the PERT's made up of 3 sections, reading, writing, and math. Outside of school, once they leave high school, students use the PERT if they plan on going to any of the 2-year state or state colleges or community colleges, places like Palm Beach State or Valencia or Tallahassee Community College, places like that. If you don't have an SAT or ACT score, or your SAT or ACT score is not high enough to meet college-ready benchmarks, which we'll talk about in a minute, you can substitute a PERT score when you go to one of those 2-year colleges, and they use them for placement so that you can take credit-bearing classes like college algebra or freshman composition, so you don't have to take remedial classes. Dual enrollment students are allowed to take the PERT the first time for free. So if they're doing dual enrollment, they want to go take it, they can go over to Palm Beach State, take it the first time on a fee waiver. After that, there's a $25 charge. And you do have to wait 30 days between taking the PERT. So it's not like if you take it and don't pass it or miss a section, you go next week and take it. You have to wait 30 days between testing sections. So I talked a little bit about college-ready scores a minute ago. And college-ready scores are scores that are determined by the Florida Department of Education. And they have an impact on state universities and state colleges. The state universities require college-ready scores just for admission purposes as their absolute minimums. They're also required by the state colleges to take credit-bearing classes, like I said, in math or composition or English. So students take the PERT sometimes to meet those college-ready scores in place of the SAT or ACT for course placement at places like Palm Beach State. So these are the college-ready scores defined by the Department of Education, okay? So to be considered college-ready, a student would have to have one set of these scores. They can mix and match the scores between verbal sections and math sections across tests to be considered college-ready. But if they're going to a four-year university, they're really going to need only the SAT or ACT. The PERT won't work for a four-year university. So you can see what these scores are. These are also the scores that a student would need to be eligible to enroll in dual enrollment as a high school student in college classes at FAU or Palm Beach State. Or they can take dual enrollment at University of Florida, but they need much higher scores for that. These are the minimum admission requirements for the state university system. State university system, we mean schools like FAU, Florida Gulf Coast, University of Florida, Florida State. Now, when I say minimum, these are the minimum that the Board of Regents have established. Doesn't mean that if you meet these, you're going to be admitted to that university. Some universities have much higher standards, but these are the absolute minimum scores. So if you have over a 3.0 recalculated academic grade point average, you don't need a minimum SAT or ACT, but you do have to have taken the SAT or ACT. If your GPA is below a 3.0, there are minimums attached to that. These are the scores that refer to Bright Futures. Now, the Bright Futures is a scholarship that you can earn upon graduation from high school based on three components: your academic weighted GPA, your community service, and your test scores on the SAT or ACT. Now, there's two levels, the Florida Medallion, the Florida Academic Scholars. As far as the GPA requirement for the academic scholars, it's a recalculated 3.5 weighted GPA on at least 18 academic units. And for the medallion, it's a 3.0 on those same academic units. You need 100 hours of community service for the academic scholars, 75 for the medallion. But since we're talking about testing, we're going to focus on that here. So you can see over the sequence of time that those test scores have increased. This is established by the state legislator. When these scholarships first came along, to give you an idea, the Florida Medallion was a 970, and the Florida Academic Scholars, I believe, was like a 12, I want to say it was a 1260 when it first came along. So you can see how much they've increased over the years. The ones in red are what currently is required for the SAT or ACT. For Bright Futures, you need one or the other. They will super score. So if you take the SAT multiple times, they'll take your best reading and your best math across testing dates. They'll do the same thing for the ACT. Remember that the writing part isn't included in this for either test, and they will super score the ACT as well. So if you take it multiple times, they'll take your best English, your best reading, your best math, your best science, add them together, divide by 4, and round up. So those scores are usually the biggest preventer to a student getting the Bright Futures. Most of the students who are eligible for Bright Futures, it's easier to get the GPA and community service, and the test score is usually the one thing they sometimes are missing. Okay?
Where's the GPA requirement that I went over that that's in the sheet?
Oh, I don't have it listed here. Sure, it's a 3.5 academic weighted GPA for the Florida Academic Scholars and a 3.0 for the medallion. Now, one other thing to know about the Bright Futures is a student can take that SAT or ACT all the way up through June of their senior year to qualify, okay? So even though they might stop taking the SAT or ACT like in the winter or fall for college admission purposes, if they're trying to qualify for Bright Futures, they can continue to take that test until they graduate in June, or even after graduation, in June of their senior year, to try to qualify, okay? Especially if they're close, okay? Talk a minute about AP and AICE coming up. So AP exams, our advanced placement program, AP is run through the College Board, just like the SAT. And these are courses that students can take in high school. They're advanced coursework based on college curriculum. They're nationally kind of established uniformly across school districts throughout the nation. So the curriculum that you take in Anchorage, Alaska, if you're in AP Psychology, it's the same exact curriculum you take here in Palm Beach County, Florida. So they're standardized across the nation. At the end of the course, students take an AP exam, okay? And the AP exam measures their aptitude and understanding and competency in that course that they took for the year. So why would a student take an AP exam? Well, most of the colleges and universities in our country recognize AP as a very rigorous program. And many of them will offer a student either advanced placement, which means they can bypass lower level courses, or advanced credit, so they'll actually award credit towards a degree. These are one example is like Princeton. So a student goes to Princeton, can meet their upper level course requirements, or fill out foreign language requirement, maybe graduate in 3.5 years if they have high enough AP scores on multiple exams. These are the courses we teach at the AP level at Vista High School, so we have a pretty good representation of courses in different subject areas. Now, if a student wants to take an AP course, we do an AP and AICE night in January, and they have to apply for that AP class. We do have an opportunity to come to the AP night, and we'll advertise that, and you can meet with the teachers and get their information about the courses. The students do have to apply, and then they're admitted to the course. Now, AP courses are scored from a level 1 to 5. 3 is considered a proficient score, but each university will evaluate that score separately. Now, in your packet, you'll see we gave you an evaluation for AICE and AP scores for all the state universities. So we'll tell you what credit they award. Now, like I said, a lot of colleges will award credit for a qualifying exam on an AP or AICE test, and others will give you advanced placement, which means you can skip introductory courses. So that varies from college to college. Here's an example. For AP US History, if you get a level 3 and you go to University of Florida, they're going to give you 3 credits of general ed requirement. If you get a 4 or 5, they're going to give you your American history requirement plus an elective credit. At Harvard, if you get a 5, they're not going to let you get, there's no equivalent score for course for that. So they're not going to give you credit, and they're not going to let you bypass a course. At Harvard, they're going to say you got to take our US history, okay? At UPenn, they'll give you credit, but only if you get a 5. And then at Northeastern, they'll give you credit, but only for a 4 or 5. So you can see, depending on the college, what they might award for credit. Okay, and that varies from every college. Now, I will say the state university system is uniform, pretty uniform. So in Florida, the state public universities are uniform. So the AP exams are made up of 2 parts, multiple choice, and then free response, which are basically essays. Okay? If the student does studio art, it's a completely different format for their AP exam. They work on creating a portfolio over 1 or 2 years, and then they actually send that portfolio off for evaluation to the College Board. Okay. We also have another advanced program, our AICE program, which probably many of you are familiar with. This is run through Cambridge University, so it's on a British system. It's heavily based on writing ability, which is really good. Okay. There's 2 levels to AICE. There's A-level courses and AS level courses. To understand the difference, an A-level course is a 2-year class taught in 1 year, and an AS level course is a 1-year course taught in 1 year. So the A-level are higher level courses, okay? Again, when you take an AP or ACE course, you don't have to pay for the exam the first time you take it. The district pays for it. If you want to take the exam on your own without taking the course or retake the exam later, then you do have to pay for it, but we pay for the first attempt. So we do have an AICE Diploma program. Now students can earn AICE credit without being in the diploma program. So just like the AP classes, if you take specific AICE courses, you can earn credits in those specific courses along the way. If you take a certain sequence of courses, you can actually earn your AP diploma. These are the courses we teach at Park Vista. And if a student is in the AICE Diploma program, they have to earn a certain sequence of courses, which are from groups 1, 2, 3, and 4, one in at least each area. One of them has to be global studies. Now, before I talk about this, AICE exams are scored from a level A to a level U. So you can get an A, B, C, D, or E on the exam. All of those are passing, but you get a certain number of points towards your AICE diploma based on what level you earn, the grade level you earn on the exam, and also whether that exam is an A level or an AS level, okay? So, but anything A through E is considered passing. If you get a U, that's defined as unscorable. And sometimes people think, well, what does that mean, unscorable? It's the British way of being polite and saying you didn't pass, okay? So, some differences between AICE and AP program, okay? So the AP program provides college credit, proficient AP exam score. You can get up to 30 hours of credit by taking the AICE curriculum. The main difference to understand is how the two tests are, or how the two courses are kind of formatted. AICE is much more laden with a writing component, okay? So writing is really the emphasis of AICE. Now, one thing to note is there is writing in the AP part as well, but half of the test is based on multiple choice, so it's also a recall of information, okay? So when you look at some studies that were done by like University of Florida and University of Virginia, you're actually going to see that students who go off to college who took equivalent, everything being equal, their SAT scores, their ACT scores, their GPA, students who took a heavier curriculum in AICE courses versus IB or AP actually ended their freshman year with a higher GPA. So you can see kids average of 3.46 who took an AICE curriculum, 3.12 for AP, and 3.10 for IB. Now this is interesting when you look at this, but if you look, when they used to have the mandatory writing for the SAT before, it's not surprising because the highest coefficient of correlation for college success is writing ability, really. So the old SAT writing score used to be the one that would give you the best predictor of what a student's GPA or success in college would be. So now we're going to switch gears a little bit to graduation testing and requirements. So like I said, the FCAP was replaced a few years ago by the Florida Standards Assessment Program. This is the next level of the Sunshine State Standards, okay? These are the requirements for graduation for testing for each grade level. Generally, students have to pass 2 required tests for graduation. One is an English language assessment that they take in 10th grade. So that's a reading and writing test. It's given over 2 windows. It's done on the computer. They also have to pass the Algebra 1 end of course exam. We'll talk more about end of course exams in a minute, but the Algebra EOC is the only EOC that's required for graduation. Students have to pass it with a level 3 or higher. So just like the FCAT, these tests are scored level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 3 is considered proficient. Okay. Now, if a student goes through 9th and 10th grade and they haven't passed these tests, there are some alternate options. For the Algebra EOC, like I said, they could pass the math test with a 97. And for the reading test, they can take the SAT or ACT. And for the SAT, they would need either a reading subscore of 43 or an English or the reading writing combined score of 430, or an ACT reading score of 19. So those are what we call concordant scores. They can be substituted after the student attempts the test the first time. Now, end of course exams are another part of the Florida Standards Assessment, and these are tests that first started in May 2011 with the algebra end of course exams. So they're the next part also of that next generation assessment program. Now we have these 5 subjects are EOC courses, okay? So we have Algebra 1, Geometry, Biology, US History, Algebra 2. Of these 5 courses, 4 of them are required for graduation. The only one that's not is Algebra 2, okay? So students, when they take an EOC subject, they get a full year, end of year grade. So it's not a semester-based grade like their other classes in English or art or PE, where they get a semester grade made up of 2 9-weeks in exam. Here they have 4 9 weeks, a first semester exam, and then an EOC exam that they take at the end. We calculate all those grades together and they get one final grade. Who participates in EOC assessments? Any student who's taking that course in the school year. Now, the courses, like I said, are those 5 courses: Algebra 1, Geometry, Biology, Algebra 2, and US History. Now, if a student is taking that classes, like for example, like US History, they might take it as AICE US History or AP US History. They're not going to have the EOC calculated in their grade, but we're still going to require them to take it for US History. That's a little bit confusing because US History is one of these courses that we offer at different levels at the college level. But the other courses, they're all going to take an EOC. It will be 30% of their final grade. Okay? Now, that's for regular US History or honors. So if students take an AICE or AP, they'll still take the US History EOC. It just won't be calculated in their grade. This shows you how the EOC courses are graded. So each 9 weeks makes up about exactly 15.4% of your grade. The first semester exam is 8.4%, and then that EOC exam is 30%. So the EOC exam is graded, like I said, levels 1 through 5, but you can't fail it. If you get a level 1, that's a D, a level 2 is a C, a level 3 is a B, and a level 4 or 5 is an A. So we want to see students, when they take their EOC exams, try to get a 3 or better, because the 3 or better is the mark that tells us they're proficient, that they really understood the material. That being said, if a student, for mastery, if a student's in an EOC class for the first time, they have to take the EOC in order to earn credit in the course. If a student normally in a class, if you go over 10 absences in a semester, you have to pass the semester exam to get credit. For an EOC class, if you go over 19 periods absent for the year, you have to pass the 4th quarter. If you don't, you'll fail the course for the year. So attendance is really important for EOC courses, okay? One other thing to note is students can also pass an EOC course by just taking the exam. So if a student takes an EOC exam, they get a level 3 or higher. If they either didn't take that course or they failed the course, they still can be awarded credit on a pass-fail basis. This we call a credit acceleration program, and this is written into the state legislation for this. Okay, so students scores level 3 or higher can still be awarded credit. We'll talk about non-EOC semester exams. So we have semester exams coming up in a couple weeks for first semester.